I'm super excited to be here today on our first of, I hope to be a series of webinars on ecosystem technologies that can be integrated into Bullhorn's ATS and CRM. This is really going to just be the beginning, but we looked across the whole ecosystem and we said, what technologies do we have? About 80 different technologies that integrate into Bullhorn's ATS and CRM. But we really think that VoIP is one of the highest impact technologies. And at the same time, it's one of the ones that has the lowest penetration of any of the integrated technologies that we have. So we thought that this was a great place to start in terms of doing a webinar on how to get the most out of your Bullhorn solution. Today, we're going to talk about how to hit your weekly call goals by Wednesday, but that's really just the tip of the iceberg. So let's get started. I do want to acknowledge the contributions of 3 of our key partners in this area, 8x8, Cloud Call, and Vonage. They've worked really closely with us in putting together the value propositions and the screenshots that we're going to show you today, and all 3 of them have developed nice tight integrations with Bullhorn solutions. So we really encourage you to take a look at their solutions on bullhorn.com/marketplace, and we'll talk a little bit more at the end about how to find out more about them. In terms of how to use VoIP, we have 4 themes which are mirrored in the themes that we have overall for marketing, but we're going to talk today about recruiter productivity. We'll come back in a couple of months and talk about sales effectiveness, and then we're going to talk about candidate engagement, operational efficiency. We think that VoIP has an impact across all of those themes, but for today, the focus is recruiter productivity. It's been a while since I've worked a desk, but I know that recruiters come in all different shapes and sizes, all different types of recruiting, but have one thing in common, which is that we are all great multitaskers. And anything that can help you save time and operate more effectively and get more done with less is a win. We're going to talk about 6 different ways that recruiters can leverage VoIP to do that kind of high volume multitasking day that we are all familiar with. First, we're going to talk about how to jumpstart your day, get organized, and make the most of your time. Second, we're going to talk about how to stay efficient throughout your day and keep the momentum up. Third, we're going to talk about how to close the distance between you and your candidates and improve placements that way. Then we'll talk about how to leverage technology to be able to work from anywhere and make the world your office. Second to last, we'll touch on how VoIP can connect to your data and analytics and really make your ATS data work for you. And finally, we'll talk about the opportunity to learn from your best and worst calls using this technology. So when I first started to prepare for this webinar, I was a little worried that we weren't going to have enough content. I mean, I thought about VoIP as really just being click to dial. It's just telephony. But actually, there's really a lot to talk about. So let's dive right in. The first thing is click to dial. That's the most obvious of all of the functionality of integrated VoIP, is this idea that any phone number that's in your database becomes a live phone number that you can click to dial. So here you see just a classic tear sheet, but underneath the direct phone line, you'll notice that all of those numbers are underlined. And what that means is that you can actually just hover your mouse over there, click it, and it will automatically launch into the phone system and reach out to that person. So there's no more looking back and forth between your screen and your phone and getting distracted halfway there by somebody else coming. You can really just focus on your screen and dial down your list. We made this, we called this section of the presentation, Make the Most of Your First Hour, because it's really about how to organize yourself this way and make your ATS screen be the place where you're spending your day and spending that first part of your day. Really being able to say, okay, when I come in tomorrow, what am I going to do? And creating a call list that's going to be what you're going to get started with and making your way down that as quickly as possible. And it's not just about that tear sheet or that call list, it's also about how you can click to dial in a record. So anywhere you have a phone number, whether that's on a list view or in a record view, you're going to be able to click to dial. So here you see a little green phone icon rather than the underline, but it's just another way of indicating that that's a live phone number that you can just reach right in and reach out to that candidate from there. So that's the core functionality of VoIP, and that is the most important thing. That's certainly what I thought of when I first thought about integrated technology, but there's a lot more to it than that. One of the most exciting features is progressive dialing and the ability to have it automatically work its way through a call list. So here what you see is a list that are all candidates that are applicable for a specific job, and it's set up in that you have to start at the beginning of your day in that first hour of your day to just make its way through all of the candidates, seeing who picks up first, and then connecting you to that candidate that has responded, so that you're not wasting time making those dials. And when you think about what that means from a math perspective, if it takes you 30 seconds to do a voicemail and you have 90 candidates for a job, then that would be 45 minutes that you spent leaving voicemails to see who's going to be interested in responding back to you. If you can do that all automatically, and that saves you 45 minutes of your day, and then you multiply that out by a team of 10 recruiters, you're basically getting a full day back across the team to be doing other parts of the job and building relationships with your candidates and really making those placements happen. So, just in terms of the efficiency piece, it's great. But it's not just that, it's also about making sure that your last voicemail is as good as the first voicemail. We've all had that fatigue of leaving the same voicemail over and over. And this way, it enables you to leave a single high energy, high impact voicemail that's going to be dropped for every single candidate that you have for that job. So now we've talked about that first day, the first hour of the day, and how you get that job order launched and out in the field really quickly, but it also can help you throughout the day in capturing all of your activity in Bullhorn automatically and making sure that you are adding notes, tasks, and appointments directly into Bullhorn while you're on the phone. So here what you see is a phone call that's in progress, and you can see that there's a note window. This is the 8x8 user interface. You can see the note window where you can type the note directly into that window as you're on the phone, and that will be synced into that candidate record when you get off the phone. You also can send an email or add a calendar invite from this interface, and that way you are you're making sure that all of the interactions that you have are in the system and recorded. What's really great is that it records all of those interactions, even if it was an inbound call or if it was a missed call, and records them. So every single interaction that you have is recorded. Here you can see a specific candidate record, and you'll see that every interaction is there. And it's automatically populated by the system, and that way you aren't missing any of those interactions when you're looking back at that candidate record. Which brings you how you can leverage that information. We all know that having the information in the ATS and being able to reference that information so that you don't have to remember every single interaction you've had with a candidate helps you to have a closer relationship with that candidate. But with an integrated VoIP system, the candidate record is going to open automatically as your incoming call comes in. So there's a screen pop. So imagine you're on the phone with one candidate, or with a customer, hiring manager, or somebody that you're trying to cultivate, and you get an inbound phone call. You don't recognize the number. You're not exactly sure whether this is something where you need to get off of the call that you're on now to pop over to the new call. With an integrated VoIP solution, you can see who that inbound phone call is, and you can tell what, you can see who the inbound phone call is, and you can tell all of the history of that interaction, of the interactions with that candidate, and that way you can make sure to prioritize what's coming in versus what you're actually in the middle of doing while that comes in. So you see both the inbound phone number, and you have the choice to answer it or let it go to voicemail, and you also see the record of that person as they're coming in, which is pretty cool. Another way that you can make yourself closer to the candidate is in the number that you choose to reach out to them from. And we've all had the experience, if you get an inbound phone call and there's a 4-digit code, or there's a long distance number, and you're much less likely to answer that call than if you get a local phone number where you recognize the number as being somebody who is close by to you, and you think, well, maybe this is somebody who really has something relevant to say to me. What we find is that there's a 4 times more likely pickup rate if you're reaching out to somebody who's local. So if you have a national team that does recruiting across the country and they're trying to reach out to somebody in South Florida, reaching out with a local phone number or an Athens, Georgia number, that way you're going to get somebody who isn't necessarily aware that they're dealing with a national team, but is being able to interact with your company as if you were local. One of our partners, 8x8, did a survey to look at how recruiters want to use VoIP and how they want to use their telephony technology. And what they found was that 63% of recruiters are, this was in a survey called How Recruiters Can Use Technology to Improve Productivity and Boost Placements. 63% of recruiters are worried about working remotely, because they're worried that they're going to miss a phone call, and they feel almost like they're chained to their desk. 96% said that they would feel more comfortable working from home if they could pick up their office calls on their mobile or laptop. So all of these telephony providers and their integrated solutions will enable you to be able to pick up a phone call from anywhere. So it can show up, and this graphic shows it can show up on your laptop, on your mobile phone, or on your desk phone simultaneously. So you can be getting it on any one of your devices and still have it appear to the candidate that you are at your desk and working. So no more missing calls, no more feeling like you need to wait around in case that person calls you back. No more forcing a candidate to call a couple of different numbers to find you. They call that single number and it routes to you wherever you are, however you specify that. And all of those calls are tracked in your ATS, which is probably the most important aspect of it. So wherever you are, you're still getting those phone calls. So the second to last thing I wanted to talk about is how that ATS data can work for you. When you're tracking all of the interactions automatically, so when every phone, inbound phone call, outbound phone call, voicemail is tracked in the system as a note automatically, it also enables you to view that information via Pulse and see what the phone conversation activity looks like both inbound and outbound over time, and also understand by specific contact when the best time to reach them are and how engaged your coworkers and you yourself have been over time. And all of that history is available to you in Pulse when that data is tracked automatically. The problem that we find is that if you don't have an integrated solution, not every phone interaction makes its way into the system. People tend to record only the most important calls. They'll sort of pick and choose and skip a few of those notes. This way, they really do make sure that all of that data is captured. Which also means that you can compare effectiveness of different recruiters and different salespeople across your team, and you can see by time when they're active and what activity they have, what their call volumes are, what those call durations are, and how they are leveraging their candidate relationships. In that same survey that 8x8 did, we showed that 76% managers want to see the analytics that pinpoint when calls would be most successful, and this type of data can help provide that. When you have this data, you can also set up competitions, you can set targets and goals as a manager, so it's not just relevant as an individual contributor, also relevant as a manager to be able to look across and see and compare people's performance in terms of their activity levels. Finally, you're able to learn from your best and worst calls. And this both in terms of being able to have monitoring from a supervisor, so having a supervisor being able to listen in and be able to provide feedback after the call, or in the case of the cloud call interface that we show here, they can actually click on that whisper button and be able to talk only to the recruiter without the candidate being able to hear them. And that way they can provide real-time coaching as things are going along, or even barge in to take over the interaction if there's something that's really, if they're training somebody new up and there's something that's really going off script. And you can record all of your calls, keep those recordings, and go back with your manager or by yourself to revisit those calls and look at what worked and what didn't work, and get a chance to see where you have opportunities to improve, and make sure that you really do learn from both things that went well and things that didn't go as well. So we have, as I said before, I hope that you've had a chance to gain some perspective on some of the neat features that are available in integrated voice over IP. This has really been focused on the recruiter experience of using integrated voice over IP. We are also planning to do a webinar in December to talk about sales effectiveness, and then in 2018 to talk about candidate engagement and how you can use some of these tools to sustain your engagement with both candidates who are on a job and candidates that are in your database that you may not have something available for them to place them on right now. And finally, we're going to talk about the operational efficiency benefits of integrated VoIP and how you can use VoIP to improve your bottom line. So with that, I am going to look to what questions we have, and we can talk a little bit more. I mean, there is a lot more information that's available about the technical aspects of the VoIP integrations, and much of that's available on the Marketplace website, and obviously on the websites of our VoIP partners.
All right, thank you, Nina. Now we're going to go ahead and begin the Q&A portion of the webinar. So let's start with this one. If my cloud communications is connected to Bullhorn, does that mean that I need to be in Bullhorn to use it?
That's a great question, and I'm glad someone asked that, because most of the technologies are enabled in a browser extension, so that anywhere you are, you can click any phone number that shows up in any application and dial that phone.
Okay, the next question. Do you need to replace your phone system to integrate into Bullhorn?
And the answer to that question is no. There are a lot of technologies available that will enable you to use your existing phone system, both the hardware and the VoIP provider, and still have a Bullhorn integrated functionality.
Okay, we got a lot of good questions today, so we're going to try to run through as many as we can. The next one is, do all three partners have the same functionality?
Another good question. As you saw as we went through, we tried to use screenshots from all three of the partners who contributed to this webinar, 8x8, Cloud Call, and Vonage. But you'll see that each system, if you really dig into it, has different functionality, different features. Some of them are more natively embedded into Bullhorn. Some of them use a Chrome extension. Some of them are a little bit lighter weight integration. Some of them are a little bit more in-depth integration. So we really encourage people to look across the different partners that we have to determine which ones are best for them.
Is integrated VoIP only beneficial to individual contributors?
I touched on that a little bit when I talked about the metrics aspect of this, but I would say no, not at all. It's not just about being able to use the supervisor panel or the queue or see what the incoming call volumes are, but it's really about being able to interact in real time with call recordings and with calls that are taking place live. So we talked a little bit about that, but I'm sure that there's more to go into directly if you want to reach out to the vendors.
Next question. I have team members that work from home. Are they going to benefit from this?
Absolutely. Actually, I think one of the biggest benefits of this is when you have team members who work remotely, because they're able to look seamlessly as though they are part of the office, even when they are working from home or remotely from anywhere.
And where should I go if I want to get in touch with the partners?
There are a couple of different ways to connect to all of the voice over IP partners that we have. You can always go to your Bullhorn representative, whether you're your sales rep or account manager, and ask them to connect you to the appropriate voice over IP provider. You can also look at the marketplace site at bullhorn.com/marketplace. If you go through the recruitment and sales productivity part of that site, you'll see all of the VoIP providers listed under that category. Information is obviously available directly from each of the VoIP providers, and they will be reaching out with that information to anybody who registered for this VoIP webinar, because each of them has their own pluses and minuses, and it's really important to take a look at what's best for you and your company.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and end the webinar for today, but there were some great questions asked that would be better handled offline, so we'll be sure to follow up shortly after we wrap up. Keep an eye on your inbox for the recording of today's session, and just to reiterate, if you're a current Bullhorn customer, visit our marketplace site at bullhorn.com/marketplace to learn more about these partners. If you're not currently on Bullhorn, feel free to respond to our follow-up emails if you'd like to learn some more. Thank you, everyone.